Today we're smoking a pork belly like a Texas style brisket using my double indirect hot and fast method. Let's get into it. Hey, I'm James from Smoking Dad Barbecue, and today we are in for a treat. We're going to be smoking an entire pork belly just like we would a Texas style brisket, all on the Kamado Joe Big Joe 3 behind me using my double indirect method. Now, why pork belly like a brisket? This isn't something that gets talked a lot about. In fact, I first heard of the idea a little over 2 years ago when Harry Soo from Slap Your Daddy shared the method, and he was so blown away from a trip to Paris where he discovered this particular technique and cut being cooked this way, and this is what he had to say about it.
So this is something that we don't typically find in America, but we'll give it a bite here. Absolutely fantastic. They should do this in America. This is a great idea.
That's some high praise coming from a world-renowned pitmaster. Yet in the 2 years since he's shared that video, hardly any other repeat cooks or this method showing up has made its way onto YouTube or social platforms. And so I want to do my spin on this using my double indirect method and see, with meat prices at an all-time high, if a pork belly at roughly half the cost is a great way to get our fix for some smoked meat. Just sounded like Mark Zuckerberg there, smoking the meats. Smoked meat.
I'm making meats now, smoking these meats here. Yeah, someone asked me, do I smoke meat? Smoking meat.
So if you're new to the channel, you've never heard of this double indirect method, let me quickly fill you in about 30 seconds on what's going on here. And so I've been cooking on a Kamado style grill for a little over 12 years, and I've always followed the setup directions from the manufacturer. In the case of Kamado Joe in the Series 3, it comes with two heat deflectors, a slow roller and your deflector plates, and they're meant to be used independently of one another. But I've had breakthrough results by combining both methods. And to quickly explain why, there's three types of heat source that we get in our Kamado Joe. We have conduction, which is our protein touching a hot surface. We have convection, which is hot air moving through the grill. And then we have some of that radiant heat from heat-soaked ceramic that is helping cook our food using that residual heat. Now here's the problem with this. Because the Kamado ceramic is so efficient, you often don't need a big fire in order to hit great smoking temperatures. And so this comes with low convection because you're not moving a lot of air, and the smoke quality tends to be on the poorer side, especially if you really overfill this with smoking wood. On the flip side, if you go a little bit hot, your conduction heat can be a little too high, and we end up with burnt bottoms trying to get a great top presentation side at the risk of overdoing the bottom side. And so what the double indirect method solves for is kind of combining both of these problems into one solution. It allows us to run a nice, clean, hot fire, so that improves the smoke and the quality of the smoke and the smoke ring and the taste. Most importantly, the taste is what we're after. It is moving more convection air. Since that fire is working, the slow roller, which I'm told moves air 20 times more in the Joe, I'd imagine this is supercharging that effect of the slow roller since we're burning a hotter fire. And we solve for the problem of overdoing the bottom by having a second layer of protection, which is allowing us to cook at these hotter, faster temperatures without totally going nuclear on the bottom of our brisket, or today our pork belly. So to prep our pork belly for today's cook, I pulled it out of the refrigerator about an hour before getting started, and the first order of business is to get our rub on. That's what I'm going to do first before even starting my fire in the grill, since I want to give that rub some time to tack up. If I didn't salt brine overnight, which I love to do, this is my next favorite method, whether I'm doing brisket or pork belly today, like a brisket. And so for the rub, I've had some breakthrough results over the last few months. And again, thanks to Chuds for sharing this kind of idea with me, where we're gonna mix our salt and pepper, but instead of going 50% salt, 50% pepper, we're gonna split that salt content into two. Half will be what I always use, my Diamond Crystal kosher salt, and the other half is going to be Lowry's. And so Chud's revealed this in a video. He works in several different restaurants in Austin, Texas, and even though people can get away with saying, yeah, I just use salt and pepper, some of those secrets are actually mixing in some Lowry's, and he is spot on the money here, because it has made a noticeable difference in the cooks that I have done since then. I've even noticed in the months that followed Chud sharing that, Mad Scientist and a few others have tested it and have been equally impressed with the method. So thank you, Chuds, for sharing your insights and knowledge here. Outside of salt and pepper, I'll add just a little bit of garlic, mix that up really well. So we're salt, pepper, garlic, but again, our salt content, which I would normally do 50-50, is 25 Diamond Kosher and 25 of Lowry's mixed together. For prep, it's really easy. I'm just gonna pat dry our pork belly, and that's it. We'll get our rub on right now. I'm gonna start on the meat side, which I plan to cook down today, fat cap up, which now that I've had the double indirect method, it's reignited that joy and love that I have for fat cap up. Normally I only get away with that if I'm cooking on an offset. For years, I followed the conventional wisdom that you put your fat cap towards the heat. On a Kamado, heat's down, put your fat cap down. On an offset, the heat's coming above, put your fat cap up. But having tasted multiple different briskets off of both different methods, the fat cap down just results in slop on the board. It falls off and it doesn't give you that caramelized texture that you get with a properly rendered fat cap up. And so that's what I've done on my last few briskets, and they have been amazing. And so that's the game plan for today's pork belly. Now that we have our pork belly all rubbed up, we can get to work on our Big Joe. And so I've already got an empty basket from a previous cook. And so I need to add two things. I need to add some smoking wood. So I'm going with oak for my smoking wood. And the Big Joe, I can get away with about 3 pieces. I'm gonna cover that with some Jealous Devil charcoal till I can't see that smoking wood anymore. I'm using about a half basket today, since it'll be a fairly quick cook. I don't need to overfill my basket at the risk of that fire never making its way down to the smoke wood. You want to visually try and maintain a 90 to 95% ratio of charcoal to wood. Otherwise, if you go beyond that, you get sort of uncontrolled temperatures. When that wood combusts, it shoots up, and or smoldering dirty fires from too much wood and not enough air inside of our Joe, which runs the risk of creosote and really nasty tasting smoke, and we don't want any of that. After I've got my mound of charcoal ready to go, I can hit it with my Grill Blazer grill gun. And while this looks really quick here at fast forward, this is a lapse time of 1 minute. Using the grill torch, and with about 400,000 BTU, I've got a great fire going right in the middle where I want it, so I can control that burn direction down to where I've buried those 3 oak chunks. I'm gonna just install the accessory rack and put in my 2 heat deflector plates so that they can start to absorb some of that heat. This will just shorten the time before we are off to the races and ready to go. If you do all this without pre-warming any of your components, you might see a temperature on your grill and you think it's ready to throw on your food. You throw on your food, and then about an hour or 2 later, all of a sudden, your temperature spiked. And what's happened is, for that first hour, a lot of energy is going to the cold protein that you put in, as well as maybe cold deflector plates or a cold slow roller top. And once they finally catch up to where they should be, the Joe will move to the temperature that you've technically set the vents at. And so this is really frustrating for a lot of new users, but it all comes down to how you build your fires. So how I like to build mine is wait till I see 300 degrees in the dome and it passes the hand test. The hand test should be about 1 to 2 seconds, and it quickly starts to get uncomfortable, and I wouldn't want to hold it any longer than that. That means my dome is heat soaked and I am ready to go. Even if the thermometer is reading higher and the dome is cold, it's okay to wait, because you're just getting a little bit of flame coming up and kissing the temperature probe, which is causing it to spike, but your grill is really not up to temperature. I'm set though today. I'm already passing the hand test. So what I'll do now is I'll install the top of the slow roller. I'll put on my X accessory ring on the 2nd level of the divide and conquer rack. And if I was using just the slow roller, this is where I would drop my smokeware 14-inch drip pan. It's about the same size as the slow roller I'll show you here, before putting the deflector plates into position. Then I'll drop those deflector plates on the X accessory rack and put that smokeware drip pan right back on top of that and drop in our grids. So we are all set now. What we'll do is we'll just close this up, adjust the bottom vent to 1 finger's width, and then the top vent I'm going to close from being wide open but in the max airflow position. This is just to allow the fire to continue to build heat and make sure that we're fully up to temperature and it doesn't take too long, yet I don't run the risk of maximum air and having way too much momentum where I overshoot that target temperature and I have a hard time reining it back in. So the game plan for today's cook is to be smoking at 300 degrees Fahrenheit, at least for the first few hours, and then I may bump that up a little bit later on depending on how our pork belly is responding to the temperature. So all I have to do now is I'm going to install 2 of my meter probes in each end just so I can make sure there's nothing funny going on with how the pork belly is cooking or hot spots within my grill, and we're ready to throw it on and let it start to ride in that smoke bath. I'm gonna not even bother checking it for about the first 2 hours. We are 2 hours in, almost on the button, and the meter probe has let me know that we're getting close to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. That's where I set the alarm, and that's my sign to move to stage 2 of this cook, which is the foil boat. Now you could either do a foil boat for the entire pork belly, or you could do what I'm gonna do today, which is we're gonna split this in half. And by the way, it's looking outstanding at this point, only at 160 degrees. And we're gonna chop up 1/2 into burnt ends, and then the other half we're gonna put in a foil boat. So a foil boat, if you've never heard or seen this, is exactly what it sounds, just a piece of tin foil rolled up as tight as you can and leaving the top exposed. This boat method has been killer in a Kamado since it solves for a few problems. One, helps preserve the bottom from too much heat coming up, but it acts a bit like a sweater or a sleeping bag. If you were to go all the way under the covers, just think about this for a second. This is what wrapping your food does, and when you're breathing, you smell your own breath or whatever else is going on under your sheets. Whereas a sleeping bag, you're still warm, but you're getting that nice fresh air. This is what that solves for a brisket or a pork belly like we're doing today. We give it a nice warm hug and let it cook quicker, preserve the juice, help not overdo the bottom, but our top is able to still continue building bark all the way to the end. And if you've not tried this, trust me on this one, you are going to love the results. So after I've cubed up my pork belly into some burnt ends and got my foil boat on, I can throw the foil boat on, but I'm gonna use the Kamado grill extender just so I can get that right up near the top dome. Doing a few other experiments, I've noticed kind of 2 really warm spots, obviously. One down near the fire, and the other is right where the air is escaping. And I've tried this with a few meat hooks in my meter probe and validated again. You get some nice heat right up top. And since we're fat cap up and I really want to render that, I'm going to drop our pork belly like a brisket up top to help continue rendering that fat. And then for the burnt ends, I'm just going to mix up some jalapeno barbecue sauce that I have from a local farmer's market, mix in a little bit of whiskey, shake that up in a mason jar, spread that out, move them all around so I've got a good coating, and let those continue to cook on the bottom level. They may finish a little bit earlier, but that is actually what I want for today, where they're an appetizer ahead of the pork belly, which I plan to rest for a few hours before slicing into it for dinner. So if that all goes to plan, we'll be doing a taste test for our burnt ends a little bit ahead of our pork belly, but I'll fill you in on any other details. The only other thing that I have to mention right now is another hack that I've discovered recently, and that is using our ash drawer as a smoking wood loading engine. And so by pulling this out, I'm going to drop in a few more wood chips after 2 hours. And now what I'm smelling is more just the nice clean burning odor of charcoal and our Jealous Devil that we went with for fuel today, but I'm not getting any more of that oak. And so by dropping some wood chips in the ash drawer, they're going to be sitting right below that fire, so any coals that fall between our basket are going to set those on fire, come up through the heat, and be nice clean smoke. And I've just done that right now. As you can see, we're getting a little bit more smoke, and it smells fantastic. So you're all caught up to present time. I'll rejoin you in a little bit when there's another update, and I can't wait to see if this pork belly like a brisket is really something that more people should be trying. Okay, I think we're getting close. Some of these are looking really good and have next to no resistance at all. So even though it's, oh, nope, now it's reading higher. So that's 207. That is just complete butter going right through. So I'm gonna get the burnt ends off. Let's check our pork belly here. So that still has some resistance. I'm gonna let that go a little bit longer, even though our temperature is past the 203 that we were looking for. When I press down into that, that still has a little bit snug feel. So I think maybe another 30 minutes or so for our pork belly. All right, it's been about 30 minutes later. I removed a few of the burnt ends that were probe tender. A few of the other ones still need a little extra time, so I ended up leaving them on. Let's check this now for feel. Oh, right through. That's what we want. Yeah, that's gonna go right through. Yeah, 30 minutes was the difference maker. So this is ready to come off and rest. That feels just like butter. So what I'm gonna do is just move it to the side, put some tin foil, cover it up, and just let it rest just like that. And the burnt ends, once I can get access to all of them, I'll check and see if they need a little bit more time. And if they're probe tender, I'll do the exact same thing, and I'll rejoin you for the taste test. So our pork belly has finished its rest and it looks amazing. Let me bring you nice and close. We'll slice it up and dig in for our taste test. So I'm excited for this. This has that sticky, like honey almost texture on top. Let's slice it open and see what it looks like. Beautiful. Got some smoke ring, just lots of juice. I don't want to squeeze it all out, but you just see it running down here as I hold it. I think this is going to be great. Let's get a slice. So see how this is. Folds right over, no problems, floppy. If I give it the slightest pull, it just falls apart with the slightest tug. I'm gonna sample this. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So I can already tell just from that one sample as I was slicing, we are in for a treat. This is awesome. So Harry Soo, thank you so much for sharing that method that you discovered while traveling to Paris. This is a winner, but let's go ahead and try one of our burnt ends and maybe one more bite before I let you go of our pork belly smoked like a brisket. I've got a toothpick here. Pick my winner. Let's go right on top. Looks good. So good. I haven't met many burnt ends I don't like, and these are no exception. And this was kind of a last minute plan when I was just looking at the size of this pork belly that we were smoking like a brisket. There's no way that our family could get through all of that. So adding some burnt ends that we could have as an appetizer, share with some friends while we let this rest was an idea I would definitely repeat in the future. Let's go ahead and do one more sample here of our flat, or I guess just pork belly, but definitely super tender, pulling apart. Let's go for a bite. That is awesome. I'm just gonna clean up my hands and do a recap. So with beef prices skyrocketing, roughly a brisket this size would have cost double what I paid for this pork belly from Costco. This is, I'm gonna put in the 100% win column. Is it taste exactly like brisket or taste like brisket? No, it's not brisket, it's pork, and so you'll not be reminded or tricked into thinking that you're having a brisket. What you are gonna get though is great clean smoke, our salt pepper rub, and just that properly rendered fat cap. This feels like an instant road trip to your favorite barbecue joint in Texas, and it was super easy to do. I think total cook time here, it's I put it on 6 hours ago this morning. It's had 2 hours of rest, so we're 4 hours and done. This is really easy to do, and easy something that you could add kind of to starting a midday and still have plenty of time to get it ready for dinner. I hope you really enjoyed today's video. If you did, please let YouTube know by smashing that thumbs up button, and let me know by hitting subscribe, or consider joining me in my channel memberships down below, where I go live once a month so I can answer your questions a little bit more real time in an intimate setting versus the structure of a pre-recorded video like this. That's it for today though. I'm going to sign off. So this is James from Smoking Head Barbecue saying goodnight, and remember, don't be afraid, fire it up.